Skol Vikings. Are we about to witness a massive shakeup in our pass rush? While everyone is obsessing over the quarterback competition, a massive piece of information just dropped regarding a potential game-changing trade before the November deadline. We are talking about a high-profile edge defender who could turn our defense into an absolute nightmare for opposing offenses. Could this star be heading to Minnesota? This situation is developing rapidly, and you don't want to miss the details. Make sure to subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss a beat on our daily Vikings coverage. Let's dive in. The Minnesota Vikings are navigating a critical 2026 season where the spotlight often drifts toward the intense quarterback competition between J.J. McCarthy and Kyler Murray. While the signal caller battle captures headlines, a different area of the roster remains under a massive microscope: the pass rush. The team is currently set to lean heavily on the tandem of Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel to disrupt opposing offenses. However, beyond those two key contributors, significant questions linger regarding depth. This uncertainty has sparked speculation about whether the Vikings might look to the trade market before the November 3rd deadline. One name that has surfaced as a potential target to bolster this unit is New York Giants pass rusher Kayvon Thibodeaux. With Thibodeaux approaching free agency, the Giants face a looming decision regarding his long-term future. If a contract extension isn't in the cards for the former first-round pick, New York may opt to move him to recoup value. Among those advocating for this move is former Vikings linebacker Ben Lieber, who publicly suggested that Minnesota should consider acquiring the edge rusher. Lieber views a trade as a logical step, provided the team gains more clarity on the performance of their current edge rotation during the first half of the season. The Vikings are currently in a wait-and-see mode regarding how their defense develops. Before committing to such a significant transaction, the organization needs to fully evaluate the health and impact of Andrew Van Ginkel. Furthermore, they need to see if young players like Jake Golday can solidify their roles as potential depth or long-term successors. Lieber emphasizes that, from a pure football perspective, the intrigue surrounding Kayvon Thibodeaux is high, especially regarding his potential impact within the specific defensive schemes utilized in Minnesota. Skol. Regarding why this move matters, the primary focus for the Vikings right now is ensuring they have a sustainable pass rush that can hold up over a grueling 17-game schedule. If the rotation behind starters Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel fails to generate consistent pressure, the entire defensive front becomes vulnerable. Kayvon Thibodeaux presents a unique opportunity because his skill set is viewed by analysts as highly compatible with Brian Flores' aggressive defensive philosophy. Ben Lieber noted that the defensive concepts used by Flores share similarities with schemes Thibodeaux is already familiar with, which could theoretically accelerate his integration into the lineup. The immediate concern for the coaching staff is balancing the need for veteran stability with the growth of younger, internal options. If the team discovers that their current bench depth is insufficient to maintain the required level of intensity, the necessity of an external addition becomes magnified. By exploring the market for a player of Thibodeaux's caliber, Minnesota could potentially elevate their pass rush from a standard unit to a more formidable one. This is not just about adding a body. It is about maximizing the potential of a defense that prides itself on volatility and constant pressure. As the November trade deadline approaches, the Vikings must weigh whether the current roster possesses the necessary depth to withstand inevitable attrition. If the evaluation of the current group suggests that the ceiling is capped, then pursuing an established player who is entering a pivotal stage of his career becomes a logical consideration. The team's ability to remain competitive in a demanding league often hinges on these precise mid-season roster adjustments that address specific technical deficiencies before they become catastrophic issues during the final stretch of the regular season. The situation in New York complicates matters further as Kayvon Thibodeaux finds himself in a crowded rotation. With younger players like Abdul Carter and Arvell Reese seemingly climbing the depth chart, Thibodeaux's role appears increasingly limited. This shift has created a narrative where a change of scenery might be the most beneficial outcome for all parties involved. Ben Lieber suggests that the Giants are essentially sitting on a ticking clock regarding the players' locker room morale. If Thibodeaux continues to see his snaps diminish in favor of versatile players like Arvell Reese, his frustration could potentially become a distraction. For the Vikings, this dynamic creates a hypothetical window of opportunity. If the Giants determine that retaining a disgruntled rotational player is not in their best interest, they might become motivated sellers. This could potentially drive down the acquisition cost, moving from a premium draft pick to a more modest return, such as a 4th or 5th round selection. However, the financial implications cannot be ignored. Because Thibodeaux is approaching a secondary contract, any team interested in his services must carefully calculate the impact on their future salary cap flexibility. Lieber cautioned that, while the football fit is intriguing, the timing of such a deal remains the most delicate variable. There is little incentive for Minnesota to pull the trigger before the season begins or before they have definitive data on their own personnel. They need to see how the current rotation functions in live action. If the chemistry between the existing edge rushers is solid, the urgency for a trade decreases. If, however, the defense struggles to collapse the pocket, the pressure to make an aggressive move for an experienced talent will likely reach a boiling point within the front office as they approach the midseason cutoff. The potential for Kayvon Thibodeaux to be an upgrade over current depth pieces is a sentiment shared by those analyzing his previous film. Despite the rotational status he currently holds with the Giants, the consensus is that he possesses the foundational traits of a high-level edge player. When healthy, his physical tools are viewed as a significant boost to a defensive front. Ben Lieber specifically highlighted that the prospect of playing in Brian Flores' defense provides a compelling case for why this specific fit could be successful. For the Minnesota Vikings, the goal is to cultivate a defense that can execute complex blitz packages while maintaining standard 4-man pressure. If Thibodeaux were to join the organization, his success would depend on his ability to absorb the system rapidly. This transition is not always seamless, but the familiarity between defensive concepts in the league suggests a manageable learning curve. The critical factor remains the internal development of the current roster. The Vikings are currently committed to observing how Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel handle the primary workload. The performance of these two individuals will ultimately dictate the team's posture at the trade deadline. If they perform at an elite level, the front office can afford to be patient. If they suffer setbacks, or if the rotation behind them fails to provide adequate relief, the path toward a trade becomes much more defined. Everything from the player's current mood in New York to the specific snap counts in Minnesota points toward a fluid situation. The coaching staff is clearly keeping all doors open, balancing the desire for internal growth with the pragmatism required to secure external talent when the opportunity aligns with the team's immediate defensive needs and financial planning constraints for the 2026 season. As the Vikings continue their evaluation, the focus will remain on whether Kayvon Thibodeaux represents a genuine piece of the puzzle or a luxury that the team cannot justify. Ben Lieber's commentary serves as a reminder that the window to make a move is narrow and dependent on a multitude of shifting factors. The organization must ensure that any addition does not disrupt the established rhythm of the locker room, regardless of the individual talent involved. The team is currently building towards a specific identity under Flores, and every roster move must be viewed through that lens. The financial reality of 2027 and beyond will also play a role in any decision-making process, as the team must be careful not to over-leverage their future for a short-term gain. As we move closer to the November 3rd deadline, the intensity surrounding these roster decisions will only increase. Fans and analysts alike will be watching the snap counts and the performance of the edge group with heightened interest. Every sack, every pressure, and every missed assignment will be scrutinized as the team determines the path forward. Will the current depth be enough to sustain a push for success, or will the front office look to bring in a veteran presence like Thibodeaux to stabilize the unit? The answer likely lies in the next several weeks of live game data. For now, the Vikings stay the course, trusting the development of their young defensive core while keeping a close watch on the market for potential impact additions. As the season progresses, we will continue to monitor these developments closely to see if the Vikings make that pivotal move. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news, analysis, and deep dives regarding the Vikings.